Welcome to the Alignment Show, featuring conversations with folks who have taken steps to identify their highest values and align their lives around them. Time on this earth is not unlimited, and you may be seeking to make sure you spend your time on things that matter to you. These conversations will encourage you and support you in doing so. Now, let's meet this week's guest on the Alignment Show. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it happens to be in your part of the world. Welcome to this week's edition of the Alignment Show. Now, this is another one that we have recorded because at the time that this episode is going to be broadcasting, I'm probably sitting in a doctor's office. It's one of those appointments that we just couldn't shift, but I'm very pleased that our guest today was comfortable with recording, and so we will be sharing that with you here in just a moment. As we get started, I want to remind you that this show is sort of sponsored by me, so we got to line up a few things here. We've been talking for a while about the upcoming book, The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why. Got a QR code on the screen here for folks who are with us in video. You'll be able to find out information about this as we go along. And then I also can tell you that for folks who are listening audio only, you can find out information about the upcoming book. It is a business fable about Dan Roberts facing a challenge in his life. He's come to a crossroads, got to figure out what to do next, not quite sure what that might be. He gets a little guidance from a mysterious barista who acts as a sort of mentor for him. And through his interactions with her, he learns 5 principles that will help him figure out what his core values are. Hope that would be of interest to you. You can find out more by going to donking.com. That's DONNKING.com/3YO. It's the number 3, lowercase letters YO. Now, we also have for you a free short story that's written in the same style. It's sort of like what I think of as cheese sampling. That is, you can find out whether the writing style in the books is the kind of thing you would enjoy reading. We don't have principles in this one, but it is written in a similar sort of way. So Brewing Inspiration is the name of this short story. It is a complete short story. You're not just getting a slice of a book, leaving you with a cliffhanger or whatever. You can find out more about that by going to donking.com. Remember, Don is with 2 N's, DONNKING.com/brewing. That's not that kind of brewing. It's like coffee brewing, BREWING. Hope that will be of interest to you and will make your life a little bit better. Here on the Alignment Show, of course, we focus on helping folks to live their values and value their lives. So I would like to introduce you to our guest at this point because I think he exemplifies that. We're going to be talking today with Yermi Kurkus. Now, I know that's probably not a name that you've heard before, but Yermi has really impressed me in the time that I've been able to work with him as a part of the group that we mention so often on this show, the Go-Giver Success Alliance. He was one of the first people that I met, one of the first people to reach out to me. He is a natural connector. Goes along with last week's program when we talked with Tracy Borison, who's all about genuine connections. In fact, Yermi is the one who introduced me to Tracy. So what his core business is, he says, we help real estate professionals create a long-lasting, profitable business by cultivating strategic referral partners. We also help real estate firm owners attain, retain, and sustain top-performing and talented realtors. Now, I can tell that Yermi has always been driven by a set of core values, and he says they've always guided him to the next step and kept him pushing to constantly keep growing. A lot of times we talk with folks on this show about how they have confronted their values and taken steps to make a change. Well, in Yermi's case, he represents someone who figured out a long time ago the centrality of values, how important they are to an effective life, not just a happy life. And so That's one of the reasons we wanted to bring him on today. Now, we did record the interview a little bit earlier. So next, you're going to hear my recorded self interviewing Yermi, and then we'll come back at the end to tell you a little bit about next week's guest. So, without any further ado, and by the way, if you hear rumbling in the background as I'm recording this, we've got a thunderstorm going on, but I don't think we'll have that when you listen to Yermi. So, stick with us, and we'll be right back. Welcome to the Alignment Show.
Hello, Don, and hello, guests and everybody, and thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Well, we're glad to have you on here. You and I have had a number of conversations over the last few months, and I'm glad to finally have you on the show because, in my mind, you really represent what the Alignment Show is all about.
I was volunteering for as a prison chaplain for a short period of time, and then it was through that I got introduced to the donors of the organization, and they were all primarily involved in real estate, and I used them as mentors.
So connections, once again, that's
Yeah.
interesting. It does occur to me, by the way, just as a side note here, you could do a short version of that by saying, "Yeah, I got interested in real estate from my time in prison."
Yeah.
Oh my, that would start a conversation.
That would make a conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So that did come before your move across the country. Now,
Yeah.
we alluded to that probably, if I remembered to do it in the introduction. We alluded to that, but let's dig into that a little bit. You told me once that you guys, I think, were intending. You were living in California.
Mm-hmm.
You were coming to North Carolina basically on vacation, if I remember that correctly.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
But it was, let's go ahead and set it up. When was this?
Yes.
And we'll make the point that you were just ahead of something almost like a tidal wave crossing the country.
Yeah, that was an experience. And so very shortly, I was realizing that I was coming to my plateau when I was working in the prison system. It was December of 2019, and I went to my bosses and I said, I love what I do. It's bringing me a lot of fulfillment. However, I feel that there's more for me in life. And, March 12th of 2020 is going to be my last day of work, was effectively how I said it back in December. And I like to say, expect the unexpected. And then March 12th came around. That was my last day. And March 15th was when the lockdowns effectively started becoming a thing. So I said, your family lives in, beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. You grew up there. Let's go on vacation for the alleged 2 weeks that everybody said that this was going to be for. We thought it's going to be, lock me down on 2 acres of land for 2 weeks. I could do that. So we drove across country. And as we're driving, we're seeing all the lockdowns happening directly behind us. The police were shutting down the highways as we were crossing, cities and stuff like that. And by miracle, we made it to North Carolina, and we're here ever since. So that's that story.
So those 2 weeks turned into 3 years.
Basically. So we started researching what does housing how much does it cost to buy a house where we live, let's say. And we discovered that our mortgage was going to be $100 more than our rent in LA. So all of our living expenses over here would be simply $100 more than the living expenses in LA, where there I'm renting and over here I could buy and, so we decided to let go of the place in LA, the rental, and purchase the cabin that we were renting at the time. We ended up purchasing the cabin, and once we established here somewhat, we got more involved in the real estate here. We got my business started picking up some more. We were closer to family, and there was a whole bunch of reasons which ultimately led us to just establishing here for the most part.
So you made the move, you got established. You already had some background in real estate. Your wife had some background in real estate. Getting the real estate license in North Carolina, of course, that would have been a part of it. You're not so much, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, you're not so much in real estate yourself. You are facilitating real estate folks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm not a licensed realtor. So that's not what I do. It just doesn't work for me. So my very first business growing up, and the first one that I did like on a major level, let's say, was a business matchmaking type of business. So it was back in England when I was living in England, and I was involved in a lot of networking events, connecting. And my job and my partner's job at the time that we were working together. So we were just like the hosts of this networking event, and our job was just to, when a lot of people come to networking events, some people are just awkward and they don't know who to start a conversation with or whatever. So our job was to start the conversation and start introducing people. And I just loved it. I loved it so much back in the day. And it was just like connecting and learning about such interesting, everybody has a beautiful story to share. I found that to be really, really cool and fascinating. And then it took me a whole life journey to realign and kind of like go back to the roots and say, where was I most happy? Where was I most, thriving in a sense? So that's when I decided to, and I said, I need to focus just on one industry, on one area. And if it's going to morph from there, no problem. I mean, it happened multiple times since. So I don't only work with real estate people. I worked with a bakery, for heaven's sake. Like I worked with all kinds of interesting people. But I found that by focusing just on one criteria, makes my life easier, makes other people's life easier. When I'm searching for a client or somebody's asking, how can I refer you to somebody? It starts from there and it's easier to deal with. So my wife got her real estate license, that she did. Um, but I did more like the matchmaking, so connecting investors with developers, or a real estate agent with with a mortgage broker, like all kinds of people who share complementary services to one another
Mm-hmm.
within the real estate world. Part of the core values growing up was it's not just enough to do business and to do all that kind of stuff, but we have to give back to the community if we are community members. So we have to volunteer. And there was actually a requirement growing up that you had to volunteer a certain amount of hours every week, every month, whatever it was, depending on school, depending on a lot of other stuff. So my grandmother would take me, my mom would take me, whoever it was would take me. I would eventually, as I grew up, went on myself, whatever, and so on and so forth. So being a community member and being part of the community, giving back to the community, was a very big core value. And I kept that core value all along my life, etc. And eventually, when I started dating, that became a core value that I was also looking for in my wife, which she shared with her family. And then her growing up in the Asheville area, they were a very well known family around here for volunteering, for being part of community. So I just tagged along when we moved here. So we volunteered to a lot of opportunities, a lot of different things, being part of the community. And again, just learning about people, and you're always meeting people through these events, through these things. So that perhaps I would say that played into the quick acclamation, as you put it. Yeah.
Okay.
I just became the husband of, or son-in-law of, very quickly. That's how I was introduced. That's how they got to know me. But I love that you mentioned that. To me, my philosophy about networking, just always was, I always thought of it as, how do I transform? And I love that word. I really use that word heavily, but I like to see it in a simple way. How could I transform this current quote unquote state stranger? I mean, right now, this individual who's in front of me, I never met him before, never anything. How could I transform this stranger into somebody I know? And paraphrasing Bob Berg again, it's, people do business with and refer people business to people that they know, they like, and they trust. But before liking and trust, you got to know somebody. So if I don't know them, I need to transform them into somebody now that I know. So that's the way I approach networking in general and my philosophy. Otherwise, it's going to be a transaction, and nobody likes to feel like they're like an ATM machine. Throw a card at it and expect money to just show up.
Oh, absolutely.
So that just doesn't work that way.
And the emphasis here is not so much for you to know them, but for you. No, that is.
For
It's
us to
not.
know each other, I think.
It goes both ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Correct.
we should mention one of the things that I know that you have done in the last couple of years. There used to be a thing, LinkedIn Local.
Correct. Yeah.
And that kind of, I don't know if it went away because of the pandemic or if it had kind of tapered off prior to that.
Hmm.
You will know more about that. But one of the things you have done in the Asheville area is to revive LinkedIn Local
Yeah.
in that area. And I'm going to put up
Hmm.
on the screen here a QR code for folks to connect with you on LinkedIn because we have people who are listening audio only. And we're
Mm.
going to have the link in the show notes, folks, if you're just listening to this. But let me also tell you how to find him. Yermi, I don't know how many people have your name. There's a lot of Don Kings out there, I can tell you. Okay.
Sure.
But for the audio people in particular, Yermi spells his name Yermi,
Hmm.
and his last name is Kurkus. Now, if they just enter that in, are they likely to find you on LinkedIn?
Highly. I think I am literally the only Yermi Kurkus on LinkedIn. So most
Very
likely, yeah.
okay. And those of you who are watching the
Mhm.
video, you can just make
Mhm.
use of the QR code there. I want to be sure that we get that in there.
Mhm.
You've got a book
Mhm.
that has come out not too long ago, I think, right? For the love of success,
Right.
achieving the impossible dream,
Hmm.
or you're working on
We're
publishing it right
publishing.
now.
Yeah, yeah. We're in the middle of well, we had a publisher, and then the publisher had to leave for personal reasons of his own, and now we were just kind of like left with the whole project on our own shoulders to do.
Mhm.
So it unfortunately dragged out longer than anticipated. But we are coming out with that book, and it's super exciting. And
Because I'm involved as a writer and I've done
Mhm.
traditional publishing and also independent publishing.
Sure.
I know a little bit about the process there. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've got any kind of a pre-order. Uh,
Yeah.
so, folks, even those of you who are watching live, we don't have
Mhm.
that link to where I could
Mhm.
easily show it to you, but it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you. Hmm.
And do you have, because I know publication schedules can change, but do you have an idea of when it will be live?
So we have a big dream to hopefully launch it for around the area of Valentine's Day.
Okay.
So February 16th of 2024, I believe it is. So
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
next year. Yeah, 24. Yeah.
For the love of success, tell us a little bit about what's the book? How is it structured? What's it about?
Sure.
You said something about
Mhm.
10 universal principles.
Correct. Yeah. So basically, I was always known as the dreamer or the fantasizer, as I used to be called, and it very much aligns with the whole idea of alignment. So once you have clarity on who you are, you have clarity on the vision and where you want to end up being, and so I had this dream, and I figured, to me there's an ideal version of the world, and that I want to play a part of that. And unfortunately, my immediate surroundings would try to hush that dream by a bit. My dreams are big, and I like to say if my dreams don't scare me, they're not big enough. Uh, so, um, so it was a story of how I really aligned my life. I said, here's the kind of life that I want to live. And then I said, well, I need a partner to live this life. And I would love to marry a woman that would match this kind of lifestyle that I was hoping to achieve and build and all that stuff. And so I wrote this 4-page, very elaborate description of the ideal wife that I was looking for. And the way it works in my community is that we go to matchmakers and we give this description, and we look for this wife. Well, long story short is that everybody told me that there doesn't exist this kind of woman. And so I said, if I could think of it, it could exist. So, long story short is I used these 10 universal principles in how to go find my wife, and I was successful in it. And I'm using the same principles in how I'm setting up my business and how I when I with the people that I work with. If you have a dream, if you have a vision, it's very possible. You could get it. So the structure of the book is a little bit of my story, a little bit about how that part of my story connects to business, and then the final part of every chapter is to challenge the reader to say, hey, how does this principle work in my life? Because just because it worked for me in this kind of way It doesn't mean it works for everybody in the same kind of way. So the reader gets a chance to write their own chapter if they will, you know. So that's basically for the love of success.
Excellent, excellent. I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. Are you thinking of publishing a companion workbook maybe
Yeah,
along with it?
absolutely. Yeah, that's what's taking all this time is that it's so we're gonna have a you could buy it either just the book, you could buy it the book and the workbook, or you could buy it the book, the workbook, and the journal. So a lot of it
Oh,
is in the journaling. So yeah, so
that that
that's
that
how we're
is
structuring it. Yeah.
that is both so
Mhm.
practical and so interesting.
Yeah.
I'll be looking forward to that.
Thank
Okay,
you.
folks, you're going to want to be sure and keep up with that. Now,
Mhm.
again, audio only, folks. You're not seeing on the screen. I've got Yermi's email up here, so I would say one of the simplest things you can do to make sure that you keep track of not only this book but other projects that he's involved in. Drop an email to him. It is Yermi. We've already spelled it once, but Yermi, Yermi at YermiKurkus.com.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that would be
Mhm.
something that you would want to keep in touch about. In fact, you are working on another project, I think, a
Mhm.
workshop to show
Yeah.
people how to use strategic partnerships. So does this kind of fit in with the book, or
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
okay? So
Yeah.
what's going on with that project?
So yeah, so a lot of people ask me, well, okay, so nice that you wrote a book, or nice that you talk about all these things and all, and well, how did you start your business based on all that you talk about? And so I said, oh, it was the exact same way how I found my wife is how I found my clients, etc. Well, what does that look like? Well, I just networked and I connected with people and just let people know what I'm doing and help them and they help me, etc. And so, okay, well, what does that look like? And everything's a strategy. So, long story short, people always ask me, hey, could you refer me to somebody? Or could you this? Could you that? And so I tell people, be very intentional. Be very intentional with everything that you do. You want to align with yourself with other people who you could benefit them and they could benefit you, and vice versa. And so right now, it just through these conversations, and people were like, just show me, just show me, just show me. So I figured if I had a big enough group that was so interested, so I put together a workshop that could just demonstrate that. I have a workbook that is a companion to that. So they could download the workbook, and it's a step by step of different things that they could do to really connect with other people and to learn how to strategize how to meet the people.
Mhm.
For example, the way I met my wife was actually through another girl that I dated. It just didn't work out with her. And she said, wow, you'd be amazing for my roommate. You should date my roommate. And long story, like how it actually turned out is that my wife before, well, when she was dating, she only wanted to date somebody whose reputation preceded him. That means she heard of him and she heard good things about him. So let's say she was excited to go on a date before even the guy would, let's say, hit up on her or whatever is the system how it works. So I was privileged that she, like, this girl who was her roommate, went to go say nice things about me, and then my wife was open to dating me. So and
Okay.
that's how I find my clients, and that's how so I show people how to do that.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent.
Mhm.
Real practical question here: is this
Sure.
an in-person workshop,
Mhm.
online, or you have versions of both?
So versions of both, but right now it's primarily online and it's exclusive to one specific group. But as soon as I'm done my arrangement with that group, it will be open to anybody and everybody. So
Okay, okay. So
mhm.
once your website is
Yeah,
revamped,
everything, yeah.
people will be able to find out about it. But in the
Mhm.
meantime, dropping you an email is probably a
Email,
good
yeah,
idea.
email and waiting lists. Those are right now what we're using. Yeah. Mhm.
Excellent, excellent. Well, as we're coming to a close here, Yermi, because I know you and I both have another meeting to get to.
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
I like to always wind up by asking. There's probably something that you wish that I had asked
Mhm.
that I didn't. So, what do you wish I had asked, and what would your answer to that be?
Yeah. So Don, I watch maybe 98% of your shows. And I think that's my favorite question that you ask every individual. And I remember I said, if ever Don asks me that question, what would I answer him? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. And but I think you did a phenomenal job asking me the questions that you did, and it was really amazing. I think really my message is, people at the end of the day want to do business with people that it's a pleasant experience to do business with them. So when I say, know, like, and trust, when we hear that, to me, what I hear is that people really just want to get to know you. They want to like you. They want to trust you. But more, above all, they really want to connect with you. I think that connection, and that's where, when you have that connection, that's when you have the alignment. And when you have that alignment, it's fun to be people who are smiling all the time, who are positive, who have a good attitude, a good character, just good people to be around. And so that's really, I think, the highlight for me and what I do in business. And that's like, you're going to hear me scream that at the top of my lungs all the time. And we have the workshops that go around becoming happier, more, better attitude, better characters, which are the core of the service that I provide for these professionals. So that's what I think is the most important thing to end off on, and kind of like to remember.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Yermi, I appreciate so much you
Well,
taking the time to come on with us here.
thank
Uh,
you for the opportunity.
and it's up here in the corner, but make sure folks can find the show notes on this, the links we've been talking about. You can go to confidencecultivators.com and find all of this information. That's going to be there. I'm going to turn it over to my, I don't know, it's my real self regardless. It's just recorded at a different time. So, Don, take it away. Really grateful to Yermi for taking the time to come on the Alignment Show. I hope that our conversation has been encouraging to you as you think about living your values and valuing your life. Next week, we will have yet somebody else that I met that first week that I was in the Go Giver Success Alliance. We will be talking with Peg Duchesne. Now, I'm going to wait until a little bit later to tell you more about Peg, but she has always been a supporter of this show. If you are a watcher to where you can see comments, Peg is here just about every week, and she just impresses me all over. So we were very fortunate to be able to get her on the show. We'll look forward to that next week, next Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You'll have several places that you can watch it. You can always catch the replay. Be sure that you go to the Confidence Cultivator. Ooh, I don't have the link up here, do I? Well, if you're watching this, then you probably know how to find the Confidence Cultivator, but that's where you can subscribe to be able to follow show notes and all that sort of thing. In any case, we will look forward to seeing you next week here on the Alignment Show. That's it for this week's episode of The Alignment Show. What has it inspired you to do in your own life? Whatever it is, take action now and take the first step. It will help you to talk with a friend about what you're thinking. Share confidencecultivators.com to spread the goodness. And remember to live your values and value your life. We will see you next week on The Alignment Show.